Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Gary's Glorious Golden Nuggets, episode 0041. And today we have Joe Prystupa, who is a personal development blogger and creator at joestrupa.com. He is intending to bridge the gap between personal development theory and real life application. And he does this by his blogging and by distributing the tools that people need and can use. Now, let me tell you something about Joe. He is a member of the 4 a.m. club. That means he wakes up every morning at 4 a.m. so that he can work on himself and his blogs for a few hours before his family wakes up. So you know he's already a family man. Now, when we started this lockdown at age 45, no gyms available, Joe decided he was going to work on himself and lose some weight. He lost 18 kilos and he has gone below 10% body fat, and he did all that in 4 months. So this man knows what he's talking about. Welcome to the show, Joe.
Hi, Gary. It's an absolute pleasure to be on your podcast.
Well, it's really a pleasure for me to have you here. I first met Joe almost a year ago when I first started walking into the digital world. And Joe was really helpful to me. And I've asked him if he'd come on the podcast because he's gone a different path than I have gone. So, Joe, let me just start off with my first question I'd like to ask is, what do you wish you had known before you had become a digital online entrepreneur?
I think what I would have preferred to know at the beginning of my journey is that things take time. We live, I like to call it a microwave world, where we expect everything to happen in 30 seconds or less. And unfortunately, that's not the case nowadays. And all good things that you need to build or looking forward to achieve in life takes time. And unfortunately, people start things and think that they can invest a month, 2 months, 3 months time into it and it to be a success. Now, if you achieve anything in 3 months' time, that's going to be a miracle. Things take much longer. So I think what I would prefer to have known at the beginning of my journey is take your time. There's no rush. It's going to take a while. It's going to be a learning process. You're going to make a lot of mistakes, but that is part of the process.
Speaking of mistakes, learning things, learning curves, what do you think was the biggest learning challenge for you? And what did you actually pick up in the silver lining of that process?
I think that's quite an easy one for me. And again, it goes directly into the times of today, where we have so much information thrown at us at our fingertips. I mean, we've never lived in a time before where we could Google anything and know the answer within half a second. You could find out what the speed of light is or the distance between New York and Scotland instantaneously. So I think the biggest mistake I made was I was trying to focus on too many things at one time. Specificity when you're doing something is key. And you can only really focus on maybe 3 maximum things at one time. But I was trying to do my social media, start my blog. I was trying to do networking. I was trying to help people. I was literally juggling about 50 different balls. And unfortunately, that doesn't work. For you to be successful at anything, you need to really focus on 1 or 2 things solely. And that's going to be your main focus. That's my biggest mistake, focusing on too many things. Because if you focus on too many things, you're not focusing on anything, to be honest. You just can't do that. It's not feasible.
It seems to be really a beginner error to take the big picture and think that's what you're going for, when the rule is find a real small niche, 2 or 3 things maximum, and then do a deep dive into those areas right there.
Really suffer from it. And it's quite funny because I heard this phrase maybe about 3 months ago, and it just fits into my life perfectly. And when I said it to my wife, she just laughed because she just said, "That is you." But I suffer for shiny object syndrome. So when you see something, it's like, "Oh, it's new. Let's have a play with this." And you want to try and take that and implement it into your business. But you really need to put the blinkers on. And when you're focusing on something, if you know what your passion is and you know what your value to the world is, that's what you need to focus on. And realistically, you need to strip everything else out. that's external from that for at least a good couple of years until you have mastery over your passion. And then you can start adding more things in. But what we do is we pick up a new skill, we start doing it, and then you go, oh, this might be able to help. I'll try doing this. And then so you're learning about 6, 7, 8, 9 other skills when you should just be focusing on that one skill you're trying to improve.
I think that shiny baubles, that new shiny object, the grass greener over there syndrome is so rampant, especially with new people, because people come into the digital world and they think it's a no-brainer. I found this thing. It made a lot of sense to me. People just like me will see that it makes a lot of sense. I will start to market it. I will sell it to, the open market. I will send ads out that would appeal to me so that people who are just like me would find it appealing. And then the next thing you begin to realize is this no-brainer is going totally to people with no brains. And I don't know where all my money is going. I don't know what I'm doing. And somebody says, did you look over at the green grass over there? Did you see that shiny little thing that I'm holding over here? And we say, oh, well, maybe that worked, because we're so frustrated at that point. And the one thing I love to tell people is the path you came on is not necessarily the path you'll end up on, but be on that path until you know for sure that you shouldn't be on it anymore.
Definitely.
So what advice would you give somebody, and maybe we've just covered it, what advice would you give somebody who says, okay, you're a successful blogger, Joe, tell me what I should do, how I should go about the process of becoming a successful blogger myself?
This is the answer no one wants to hear, but it takes time. It really does. It takes time. For you to get any amount of traffic to your blog, it's going to take at least 9 months to a year if you do everything right. If you do everything right, tick all the boxes, it's going to take a year. But guess what? When you start blogging, you're not going to do anything right. You're going to make all the mistakes. I made all the mistakes. And again, looking at the shiny object syndrome, you get distracted with lots of different things that you think can bolt onto your blog. So the perfect example for me was I found software that could do animation, drawing animation, and they make beautiful videos, absolutely beautiful videos. But I wasted, well, no, I wouldn't say I wasted, but I invested 3 months of my life into learning the software and becoming at a decent level where I could produce nice videos. But that was distracting me from what I need to focus on, which if you're blogging, it's your content. It's the value that you want to give to your readers. And that's what you should just focus on. It doesn't matter what your website looks like. If you produce fantastic content that is of value to your readers, they will come to your website, no matter how bad it looks, if they can get value from that website. So my advice would be to people that are just starting out is just focus on writing, focus on being consistent, focus on publishing a blog post once a week, once every 2 weeks, and just enjoy the process, because it's not going to become a success overnight. You just need to go through the process. You're going to make mistakes, but that is all part of the learning process of becoming a blogger. And being a blogger, you have to wear so many different hats. And when you start, you haven't got the budget to have a social media marketing department. You haven't got the budget to have your email campaign run by yourself. You haven't got the resources and money or the resources and time to do it all. So you can't do it all at once. So just focus on the basics. And the basic is writing good content for your readers.
That's really important. Content is truly king. When you have premium content, when you are giving so much value, they're coming back. There's probably, you can take almost any niche, and probably every niche has at least 10,000 bloggers, but it's the guy that's giving the real content, the real value, and consistently and repeatedly on time as promised. Those are the people that get the followings, and the following is what drives profit towards you. Now, there's lots of platforms to let people know what you're blogging. What do you prefer? What's out there that you say, hey, social media wise, this is where I go?
So that's a fantastic question, Gary. Now, I only found this out recently, but the platform that supports bloggers the best is Pinterest. And the reason Pinterest supports bloggers the best is because its business model is completely different from every other social media platform out there. So if you think of other social media platforms, the way they make their money is by having people stay on their site, and then they see adverts. We all know the big social media platforms. The longer you stay on it, the more adverts you see, the more money you make them. As opposed to Pinterest, so you have pins that sole purpose is to take the user from Pinterest to whatever site is going to give that reader value. For a blogger, that's absolutely fantastic, because if you create beautiful pins that show the reader that you've got value to give to them, they're going to press on that pin. Plus, these pins are so easy to share with other people. You create boards, and when you create a board, you can pin these pins onto your board, and then other people come to the boards and see the information. So Pinterest is all about sharing information and sending users to valuable websites so that they can learn more stuff or have ideas or creative things. Whereas the other social media platforms' whole business model is to keep you there so you get exposed to more adverts so they make more money. So I think for a blogger, it's a pretty easy choice which platform should be prioritizing. And it's quite funny, a lot of people don't realize that Pinterest is still growing. No, some people think it's dead in the water, but Pinterest is still gaining more viewers and more viewers. The top Pinterest influencers have people visiting, I would say the top one is 20 million visits a month from Pinterest, which is an absolutely outstanding number. But even in a short period of time, you could create a dozen pins and these get shared by other people easily, and that can generate a lot of traffic to your site. And when you're just starting out, this is really, really good for you. And it doesn't cost you any money as well.
Joe, I have a question for you that's kind of a little bit off the wall, and I'm just kind of looking at true or false. Do you agree or do you disagree? But as a blogger, somebody who says, okay, going out to do Pinterest to get my people, there's a philosophy. The philosophy is anybody who's online has a business and can get 1,000 raving fans and keep them has a viable business. Do you find that to be a true or a false statement?
I would say that is a false statement. And the reason I would say that's a false statement is it can't just be any 1,000 people. No, if you target a following of 1,000 people and they're teenagers between the ages of 15 and 17 years old that haven't got any disposable income, that's not going to make you any money. That's not viable. But if you had 1,000 people that are CEOs in large companies, then obviously that's going to be a very viable business. It really depends on who your audience is.
Excellent. I keep thinking that must be about true, but I never really thought about the demographics. Being a podcaster, having 1,000 people who subscribe to you does make you very viable. But then when you look at the demographics of who is listening, podcasters have basically males between the age of 16 and 54 is what they're counting. And that dominates almost 49% of the listening audience. Then it becomes females. Females start about 21 to about 49 that's listening, but in households with an income in excess of 150,000 a year. So when you kind of consider that, yeah, you've got a great market there with 1,000 people. I can understand where you come from with the blog. You know, depending on where they fit into the demographics your people are at, that makes it either a true or an untrue statement. And so I really appreciate your feedback on that. Joe, you're a really interesting guy. Now, I'm going to put information in the show notes about how to contact you, but tell people how best they contact you.
So the best way to contact me is for my blog. That is joeprystupa.com, Joeprystupa.com. And on my blog, all my blog posts are bursting with value. My whole philosophy is to give as much value to my readers that come to my blog post. Now, as you said at the beginning of the show, I want to bridge the gap between personal development theory and the real life application of that, because we all know that there are thousands of books, millions of blogs that all tell you information of what you should do in your life. But there's not many that actually give you the tools to implement that in your life. And that's where I come in. I look at popular techniques and popular books, And what I do is I create the tools that you can then take away and use to make sure that you can use that information in your actual life. And I think that's what sets my blog posts out from other people.
Great. Now, I have a final question to ask you before I give you 2 minutes to say whatever you want. But my final question is, Joe, people are listening to you, and those who are watching the video are looking at you, and they're probably trying to figure out, where the heck is this guy from? Could you tell them where you're from?
Yeah, that's not a problem. I live in Scotland in the UK, and my origin is my mum is Scottish and my dad is American. So I get my colour from my skin between my dad, who's obviously a Black American, and my mum from a Scottish. And you don't get much white than the Scottish people, because we see about 1.5 hours of sunlight per year.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Because I know there's probably people looking at this. Wait a minute, is he speaking a Scottish accent, or is that some kind of another kind of accent? But where's this guy from? So that's really great. Thank you for sharing with us. You're
No
good,
problem.
you're a good bloke, my friend. So I give everybody 2 minutes. Just share from your heart, Joe. Whatever's on your heart, just tell us.
2 minutes. That's not enough time for me to get everything off my heart, Gary. But I'll try and give it a go. So my message to everyone is, I really want people to, especially with the times we've just went through, look at their own personal growth and personal development. And I think one of the biggest things that we need to look at in our lives is our own self-discipline. Now, unfortunately, self-discipline has a negative connotation. And I think that's because half the word is discipline, and people think about discipline as not being good. But rather than think about self-discipline, think about self-mastery. The more you're able to control yourself for the majority of the time. So just say, let's just talk about diet. If you can have self-mastery over your diet for 80% of the week, that means 20% of the week, which is one of the days during the weekend, you can enjoy your food. You can have your pizzas or your sweeties or your crisps. And guess what? When you're more disciplined over the majority of the week, it allows you to enjoy when you do have treat food more. Because normally when people have treat food, there's a connotation of guilt behind it as well, because they know, I shouldn't really eat this. But guess what? If you've been disciplined all week, and then Sunday's your fun day that you can eat whatever you like, then there's more pleasure in eating that food. And you can apply that to any part of your life. If you're more disciplined in any part of your life, your diet, your exercise, your sleep, you can then enjoy the rest of your life more to the fullest, because it's well deserved.
I want to thank you, Joe. That was really profound, important information. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been listening to Joe Prystupa. He has given you so many incredible golden nuggets today. If you want to be successful, follow successful people, because they leave clues. Joe is leaving clues. Not only that, he's writing about them. So please do follow Joe. This is the end of this podcast of Gary's Glorious Golden Nuggets. Thank you for attending. Would you kindly subscribe if you haven't done so, and share this video with somebody you know who would like to know what Joe's talking about, what he's doing. We all need to master ourselves. The only way that we're ever going to succeed in this life is by mastering who we are. It's the slaves that don't have a chance. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you, Joe, for being here. I really appreciate it. It's been a great catch up with you today. And with that, I bid you adieu until next week.